Hello and welcome everybody. This is the fourth time I've tried to do this video, and this is also the last time I'm gonna try to do this video, because if it doesn't work this time, I'll scream. I'm waiting for the loading screen to come off. There you go. So as you guys all may know, the FNAF chapter released. It's pretty cool. No, it's not. This entire video is gonna be me roasting the FNAF chapter. Here we go. I'd like to start this with like a little, so I want to start off by saying I am a fan of both of these games, so, you know, I'll probably say, like, a lot of stuff. I'm a passionate fan of both these games, and I really like both these games, and I think the FNAF chapter is one of the laziest chapters they've ever made, and it's one of the biggest chapters, too, which is why me and a lot of other people were surprised that it got the half-assed treatment so much. Even more surprising is that there's a lot of people who are just fine with that. And I'll talk about that later, I guess. But for right now, I want to find where I'm fast traveling to. I want to just talk about it because from like a Dead by Daylight fan's perspective, it's a fine chapter, but I feel like an actual FNAF fan's perspective should matter a little bit more because, well, you know, FNAF fan. And I just want to start off this by saying that this isn't scripted at all, and it's going to be shooting shit out of my ass and, you know, hoping people like it, and if people don't like it, that's fine. I wish I could see that, but whatever. If people don't like it, that's fine. I don't really care. Just don't be kids to me or to each other in the comments, because that's not allowed. So, like I said 18 trillion times before, the FNAF chapter's out, and it's kind of mid, if I'm being honest. I'm surprised how lazy the FNAF chapter feels, because it's one of like the biggest chapters, and it feels like they put the littlest amount of effort that they possibly could put into it, because they knew that no matter what, it would be big, because it's FNAF. I hate this game. They knew that no matter what, it'd be big, so why put in all the effort? Let's make a half-assed killer, but look, it's a character that you guys wanted. And let's make a FNAF pizzeria, but it's not any pizzeria from anything. And that's like the lamest part of this chapter. I'm gonna murder people. And, you know, it's just surprising to me that for such a big chapter, they put such little effort into it, and especially with Scott at the helm and making sure everything's perfect. I'm surprised Scott let them cut so many corners, and it really shaped the chapter into something that isn't really anything that special or anything that unique at all. And everybody was like hyping it up forever, and then it's like just not what the people were hyped up for wanted at all. And even behavior said that didn't turn out to be true, and they kind of way overhyped it as well. And of course, all like the big FNAF content creators and are gonna say it's good because who? Where? Who? Its name's Eva. I'm getting gangbang. Oh, that's not good. Oh, the game crashed. I'm gonna kill myself. But yeah, I just want to talk about all like the lacking areas of the chapter, and how, to me and to a lot of other people, it feels like Scott really dropped the ball. He really let a lot of people down, and a lot of people online are making like good criticism of the chapter and stuff, but then those people all get shut down by people who like the chapter because Scott approved it and shit, which I think is bull crap. So I just want to talk about why I think the chapter is a disappointment, and maybe a lot of other people view it that way too. But if I'm gonna too long didn't watch, just give you like a quick synopsis of what I'm talking about. Now, I'd say the chapter feels like a bunch of references to FNAF and nothing else. And it only captures like the general idea what FNAF is and doesn't really capture the true charm of the games, I think. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to big boy talking. Oh, I just want to talk about the small stuff and get to the big stuff, and trust me, you know what the big stuff is. So, we'll start off small, and I should probably start off with what I like. I think Springtrap's model looks okay. That's all I have. Okay, let's talk about the bad stuff. So, first of all, Springtrap's model. It's just okay. It's not that good. I feel like everybody's like blowing it over, like giving it way too much credit because it's more realistic. I've seen better fan-made models. A lot of this is going to be talking about how the fans did better. That's interesting, right? Can I please go through? Let me through! But I honestly think there's better fan-made Springtrap models that make them more realistic out there. And I always felt like I've always wanted to see Springtrap's model in a more realistic look, as well as like everybody else, but I feel like overall, come here you little ball bitch. It's a really souped up droideka. The model itself looks fine. I think it does a decent job at making Springtrap more realistic, but something that really bothers me about the model is that they cut some of like the detail from the original model, which is weird to me. Like, they cut the secondary colors. It looks like the model's unfinished. It looks like they forgot to model in his, like, belly or his inner ears, and instead of just going back or just doing the colors anyway, they just didn't. And it seems so weird to me why Scott, a man who's known for putting in all this incredible detail into his games and into his models and shit and making sure everything's perfect. It's weird why Scott approved of them taking stuff away from the model. The model's all like one material and it looks really bad in my opinion. I get why people would still like the model, but I just don't really like it too much. I think it looks too simplified. I said in one of my previous versions of this video, I said that it was the simplified logo of Springtrap models, where it still looks good technically, but something's off and it kind of doesn't feel right. And like, I'm not gonna try to discredit them and say it's like a low effort model. I think the model is probably one of the highest effort things in this chapter, but I don't know, I just don't think it looks that good. But a lot of people do, and I'm not gonna try to tell them to not use the model in animations or shit like that. I think if you like the model, that's alright, but it's just not my cup of tea. It simplifies his design too much. Oh yeah, another thing, I think the wires stand out way more than on the FNAF 3 Springtrap model. I don't know why I came in here, but I don't know, it just doesn't look that good to me. Also, BD1 sitting on my little backpack is adorable, but yeah, the wires, they just stand out so much more than on the original model, and it kind of distracts. Like, I saw people saying they took away the secondary colors to make the design look less busy, and then the wires make the model look way more busy than like a darker patch of suit would have. And the wires, they just stand out way more. What was like a more subtle detail on the original model is just so there, you know what I mean? And I was honestly surprised they kept the, I don't know why I came over. I was honestly surprised they kept the wires at all, because the wires were always like a kind of less realistic part of the design. And I think they did a good job incorporating them into a more realistic like look, but I feel like they just stand out so much more, and I can see them so much more, and they're just kind of you know what I mean? there's stuff like the eyes being cut in half, but that's not really a big thing. Nobody's gonna see that his eyes are cut in half unless you're like you rotating them around. So yeah, another thing is the music, which is just not that good. I'm sorry, but the music, like, I liked it at first, but it's so in your face and it's so just there, and it's, again, it's like, why did Scott approve of the music? It's so loud and annoying, and it fits, sure, but it's just so in your face and so constant. And then once it starts slowing down, you hear the arcade starting to go up again, and now you're listening to it again, and it's so... The music's just so loud and in your face, and it's weird to me that Scott approved of something so annoying. And yeah, it just surprised me that Scott approved of something so loud and in your face and annoying. And I'm surprised, like, out of all the areas you could have been original, why be original? I'm stuck here. Why be original with the music? Why not, like, or at the very least, if you're gonna do original music, do something that isn't loud and obnoxious. No, I thought I had the blaster out. Why do something so loud and so obnoxious when it was probably the easiest thing you could have done was the music. But I'm surprised they didn't do, like, any homages to, like, the original game's music or something, or at the very least did something that sounded more like the in-game musics of FNAF, like something that was like a music box or something. And people will say, oh, they did do a music box, but they did a music box for the in-game collection. Rather than for, like, just Springtrap himself, and it's a missed opportunity to make a song that sounds super creepy. I hate this game. It's such a missed opportunity to make a really creepy and actually good sounding menu music. One of my favorite menu musics that I think is really creepy but is also, like, really good is Blight's menu music. I think Blight's menu music does a good job at being good while also being creepy to listen to, and I guess described it as creepy. I don't know, I just thought the music would be better, and I don't know, I think me and a lot of other people, well, I don't know what I'm talking, but I feel like there's this so much missed opportunity with the music to do something that was more true to what the series has in it, rather than doing something annoying. They could have done a much better job at making something that sounds like it's from FNAF than just... FNAF's music's already incredible as it is, so I don't... It's most confusing to me why they wouldn't have done like a music boxy sound, or why Scott would have let them do this super loud annoying thing. It's just so weird to me. The next part of this video is the map. Yay! You guys know the map, right? It's such a good map. The map is terrible. Like, in terms of like a Dead by Daylight map, it's great, but in terms of like being a FNAF fan and like a pizzeria, it looks terrible. Well, I don't understand why they wouldn't have done anything from like any of the games. Like they said, oh, it's the mind child of the entity. It's like all the areas put together. It's not. I don't understand that reasoning. Because it's not like all the areas put together. It just looks like a super generic pizzeria. And for a character taken from the games, I'm surprised it's the closest comparison you can make with that, with the in-game map and something from the FNAF anything, was... Jesus Christ, I'm getting gangbanged. What the fuck happened to that guy? But, like, again, I'm surprised that Scott approved of it, because it's not anything we've seen before. It's like if they were to, instead of doing the RPD, they were to do an original, like, generic and boring, like, police station that it has, but it has the statue in the middle, and oh, look, it has, like, one room from the movie version of the RPD. And again, it's like, what? It's like, why did Scott approve of this? Why was he just okay with this super low effort, super, like, not even trying bullcrap? It's like, it's weird. Again, it's just weird to me. I also don't know where I'm supposed to be going. The map just doesn't look good, and it doesn't look like anything we've seen from anything, and it's so weird that for some reason Scott was like, oh, but look, it's the FNAF movie map, and he thought people would like it. Like, it's such a weird map, and it's just so weird that they did something original on the map. From, like, in terms of representing a FNAF area, like, every single FNAF map has a lot of personality and a lot of uniqueness to it, but, like, it feels like the only reason why they did it was to do a more realistic FNAF map, which, if they wanted to do a more realistic FNAF map, they should have just done the movie map or something, and instead they forced themselves to do something original again. And I feel like the biggest problem with this chapter for me is that they did so much original stuff where they could have just slam dunked something from the games or from the movie and then just called it there. And it's so weird to me. The map is just a really bad recreation of a FNAF anything, and it feels like a generic Chuck E. Cheese that just so happens to have Freddy Fazbear in it. Like, it feels like if Freddy wasn't there, it'd just be this super generic area. Whereas if you were to take, like, just like the FNAF 1 map, and then you were to take out all references of Freddy Fazbear, you'd probably still be able to recognize it as a Freddy's location and not just some, like, super generic, you know what I mean? The map itself has, like, good detail and stuff, and I just feel like a lot of people, myself included, really wanted to see one of the original game's maps in a more realistic standpoint. Instead, we got a super boring, super low effort map that even looks like maps that we've already seen in Dead by Daylight. It looks so much like Greenville, and it uses like the same assets all over the place as Greenville. It's like if you were looking in a direction that wasn't the main building, people would probably go, oh, hey, are you on Greenville? No, I'm on Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And once again, it's so weird to me that Scott let them cut the corner of reusing all these assets and shit. And it's just so weird to me that Scott would have approved of this super low effort, half-baked, kind of just not good content, I guess. They should have done something from the games, and if they wanted to do something original and still have like the FNAF brainchild thing, what they should have done was they should have taken all the most iconic parts from the original games, and they should have turned it into if they wanted to do something original while also doing the entity brainchild thing or whatever the what they should have done was they should have taken the most iconic aspects of the original game. They should have taken all the original areas, like the most iconic areas from the original games, and then put them into this big, like, hodgepodge of all the maps from the games and turn it into like this big maze of like memories from all the previous areas. Like, that would have been cool, and it also fit with the description that they describe the map as. The map right now, like the way they describe the map, what I've been saying, they said that was like a combination of everything we've seen before, and it's like a brainchild of all the previous areas, and it's really just not. It's the least. Get it? It's like the furthest thing from anything we've seen before. Like, nothing unique to it or anything like that. Finally, we get to the biggest part of this video and the biggest part of this chapter that a lot of people are complaining about, which is the map. Yay! Or not the map, Springtrap's power. Yay! Springtrap's power is so divisive among people, I'd say. It feels so disconnected from everything from FNAF, I guess, and it's such a basic and boring and generic power, and I feel like a lot of people who are like, well, what else could they have done? And I feel like people like that, like, way under, like, value how much potential Springtrap had. Like, I don't think he had infinite potential, but I think he could have had a much more unique power than what we got. And a lot of people compare it to Huntress's power, and I feel like they're not wrong. Like, when you play with Springtrap's axe, it's a faster moving, shorter range Huntress hatchet. And because you're doing all the same things with it from just a basic level, aren't you? You throw it, and then it goes, and then the skill expression is you can do orbitals, like, over walls and and it's like, people are like, oh, it's such a skill-expressive power. It's not that skill-expressive. I think Huntress herself is more skill-expressive than whatever we have with Springtrap. And I feel like the new mechanics they added in to try to make it, like, more separate from Huntress's power, I feel like all that stuff is kind of, it doesn't really do much for me. I'm talking about just the axe. I'll just say the doors right now. I didn't expect much from the doors. It's a door. You don't have to make the traversal different or anything like that. I think they did the best they could to try to differentiate, because unlike Springtrap's actual power, their 100% is only a finite amount of ways before you can do a traversal before they start to feel the same, and I feel like they did the best with what they had. I think I hate my life. But back to the axe. I feel like the only reason Scott approved of the axe is because it's a reference and people would like the reference, and his power is a reference with no real substance to it. It feels really samey to a lot of other powers we've seen before. I have no clue where I'm trying to go. It even with like the jump scare, which barely ever happens, and hell, even like the door jump scare, which barely ever happens, it feels so disconnected and disappointing to play with, because the people who knew Springtrap had more potential than the axe, and who think Springtrap has more potential than the axe, are just kind of getting steamrolled by people who just won't see the full potential of the character, and it sucks. And again, it feels like Scott only approved of the axe because it's a reference and people would think the reference is funny. And like, I should appreciate the reference, right? I'm an animator, and the axe is what the animators do. We had to give Springtrap something to use, so we gave him the axe. But turning his entire thing that he can do and then boiling it down into what is just a reference with nothing else to it, it's such a disservice to his character. And a lot of people think that it's such a disservice to his character and just such a letdown to a character that could have had a much more interesting power than what we have. And hell, they had 6 years of content to look off of to see what the people wanted and what the people expected, and instead of basing their power off of those at all, they made this super generic, super uninspired power that is just boring to me. But it's just super generic and boring to me, and I feel like people expected more, especially from his power, to be something unique and original, and it's this number tweaked new mechanic version of another killer's power, and it doesn't have enough to really differentiate it from like anything we've seen before. At the very least, for me, it doesn't do enough to really be different from Huntress's power, because the fundamentals of playing with it are the same. You're throwing a thing in the air, and then you're throwing a thing through the air. You know what I mean? It's such a disappointing power for a lot of people, and I feel like Springtrap could have done so much more. But again, Scott just approved of a super low effort, super boring, rehashed version of a power we've already seen before. And like, I'm not saying Springtrap should have been a dash killer, but what I am saying is that Springtrap had so much more potential for a unique power. Instead, we got a reference with no real substance that just shoves itself down your throat, and it ends up making the actual reference not that fun to me. I'm gonna rest before I do his boss fight. It ends up being a reference with no real substance to it, and it ends up feeling like such a letdown and such a disservice to Springtrap's really interesting character. Because the way how a lot of people always thought Springtrap was, he's like a cold and calculating Hannibal Lecter, right? Where he sticks in the shadows and he plans stuff, but as soon as you're like in his trap where you want him or something like that, he turns into this big personality, big like theater kid character. And I feel like it's a really interesting character, and I feel like Scott boiled down his character into just the super loud theater kid, and I think it's just such a disservice to his character and such a disservice to the fans, and boiling down his character into just this super loud, annoying, like fucking Elm Street Part 5 and Part 6 Freddy Krueger. It's just such a letdown for his character. And again, he had way more potential to have a much more interesting and a more like high personality power than what we got. And in terms of representing the franchise that it comes from and representing the character, it just such a terrible job. Like, it gets like the general like not a FNAF fan idea of FNAF, if that makes sense. Like, it's like if I'm not a FNAF fan and I'm tasked to make the FNAF chapter, I'll be like, oh, okay, what does FNAF have? Okay, it has the doors, it has cameras, there's, who's the main bad guy? The purple guy. He's Springtrap, I'm pretty sure. And then the axe. I think the axe is pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like such a it feels like Scott wasn't involved with making the chapter, which is not true, because even the people said that Scott was like super involved with the chapter. So how come it feels like Scott wasn't involved with the chapter at all? Does that make sense? That battle droid lives. And I feel like Springtrap has so much more potential, because in like 6 years of people being hyped for this chapter, Springtrap, there are so many Springtrap like concepts and stuff. I feel like using those as like a basis and then going off from there, from what people expected. Like, Springtrap I feel like would have worked best as a stealth killer, and I feel like they just didn't, for some reason they didn't want to do a stealth killer, and it feels like they strong-armed Scott into doing a super boring power and uninspired power. It feels like they strong-armed him into making something where they're like, look, we'll do the power and we'll put in the axe as a reference, and Scott just had to accept that. And like, I don't want to believe that Scott approved of this super low effort, low personality, low just anything, just terrible chapter. And I made a killer concept for Springtrap that I think was much more interesting. I'll just put it on screen right now because I don't have like a read of me. Holy shit. But it's such a low effort, low personality thing, and I feel like my power is probably closer to what a lot of people I think were expecting. And I feel like, I'm not saying my power was perfect or anything, but it just feels so you know. Oh, and that's really how the whole chapter feels. But this whole chapter feels like such a letdown, where everything's just good enough instead of being... It's just such a disservice to the fans of the series who were looking forward to this chapter forever and wanted something unique and something original and something that would set the bar for... And something that set the bar for chapters moving forward, like what Resident Evil did. And instead, we got this super low effort, super uninteresting, super uninspired, generic chapter that has no personality and no substance outside of references. And it's just a letdown to the people, me, and to everybody else who was really looking forward to this chapter. I don't think people deserve to get like shut down because... I don't even remember what I was talking about. Because from the fans' perspective, it's not just about if the power is a good, balanced power or not. It's about if the power has personality and effort and does a good job representing the character in the series. And it just doesn't, man. It really doesn't. And I hate how the power feels. And again, it feels like it was designed by someone. It feels, you know, I know how it feels. It feels like it was designed by a game journalist. It feels like it was designed for game journalists. My controller disconnected. It feels like it was designed for game journalists, because the game journalists, they'll look at it and they'll go, oh, look, it has the doors and look, it does such a good job representing the series. I hate seeing game journalists and saying that it's such a... They did such a good job. They did such a good... It represents the series so well, but it just doesn't. If it was representing the series, I would think FNAF is a super low-effort, generic franchise that has very little personality or substance outside of the references. And, like, I feel like no matter what we do, nothing is gonna change. We're just gonna be stuck. Okay, this ricocheting shot thing sounded way cool, But I would think FNAF is this low effort, super generic franchise that has little personality outside of references, and whose main bad guy is this big personality, super annoying character. But I'm not a game journalist or just a fan of Dead by Daylight. I'm also a big fan of FNAF. I'm a FNAF person. I get why people like it too. But oh, I have to interact with the holo table. Yeah, it just feels like such a disservice to the fans. What the fuck is wrong with that planet? That's really all I have to say. I wanted to make this like little after video thing just to like, I don't know, I guess just to talk about some things that I didn't really talk about in the chapter. And one of the things that I'm surprised I didn't talk about at all is the lack of survivor, which a lot of people were looking forward to. A lot of people wanted a survivor in this chapter, and a lot of people wanted Michael so we could see his face finally, and they didn't do that. And I'm not as upset with that as a lot of other people are. I feel like the amount of content we got isn't really the problem with the chapter. The problem with the chapter for me is that it doesn't feel like they really tried to make anything that, I don't know, it does, to me, it just doesn't feel like they tried for some reason. And like, obviously they would have had to try, but it feels like they just didn't put as much effort into making this chapter as like other licensed chapters, if that makes sense. Because I always thought that this chapter would be like a slam dunk. It's like the easiest chapter you could possibly do, because you have like 6 years of backlog and then another year on top of that of people being hyped and discussions for it and everything. And it feels weird to me that for some reason, like, the majority of like concepts and stuff I've seen at the very least, like, they're all different, but they all have the same sort of like they all have the same sort of like stealth sort of play style. I could be wrong, but they all were always stealth, or they were all at least had like some sort of stealth capability. Even my rework had more like a stealth focus and more of a like a setting up stuff focus. And it feels weird to me that they ignored 6 years of people going like, this is what we want, this would be so cool if Springtrap was like this. And then for some reason, like, you can't change the chapter and like, or you can't change Springtrap's power in like a 2-month period. But it feels weird to me that everybody who saw the original like axe leak were like, oh man, that'd be so unfortunate if Springtrap had an axe. And then for some reason they weren't like, oh, people might not like the axe. And I don't know, I don't really know what happened to those people either, because for some reason they were just so against making a stealth killer for whatever reason. And I don't get why they just didn't want to do a stealth killer. They even like opened up the Springtrap power discussion by going, we didn't want to make him a stealth killer. Why? You know what I mean? It's like, the only reason why I could think is because they wanted his power to be able to like mass appeal to more people. And in trying to mass appeal to people, his power ends up feeling very samey and feeling very like, I feel like 100% certainty, if the axe was never like a thing the people like made Springtrap have and like animated him with it and stuff, and if it wasn't for him having an axe and like and die in a fire and shit, Scott would have probably not approved of the axe. And that was something that I talked about in the video that I feel like I didn't really explain very well, is that it feels like the power was only approved because it had the reference in it, and it feels like behavior were like so against making something that the people wanted, so instead they made something with a bunch of references in it, so the people, they'd be like, oh, he's not a stealth killer, that's so lame, but oh my god, look, it's the fire axe. And like I said in the video as well, the fire axe doesn't really do enough for me to kind of differentiate it from Huntress, and it's just, it feels weird to me why it feels like you had what the people wanted for so long, and then you have the actual chapter, and the actual chapters, it feels like it's like so far from anything the people wanted from the chapter, I guess. And I don't know, it just feels so weird to me that for some reason, like, Scott must have known that, like, he must have seen the people talking about Springtrap in Dead by Daylight. Like, I feel like Scott must have seen, like, a couple of power concepts, and he, like, I just don't understand why Scott and behavior were, like, not Scott, but mostly just behavior, why they're so against doing, like, a power centralized around stealth. And, like, again, they opened up their power discussion by saying, we didn't want to make him a stealth killer, and it's like, why didn't you want him to be a stealth killer, you know what I mean? Especially because, like, everybody was like, it'd be so unfortunate if Springtrap threw an axe, he had so much more power potential than a reference. And it's just so weird to me. And in my mind, I compare it closest to, like, the discussion about Nemesis's power after he released, and how it's just a tentacle and doesn't really make you feel like Nemesis. Like, when you think of Nemesis, you think of this big hulking giant thing, and then his power takes 3 hits to do, and then you have to power up your power by using it, and then the zombies are useless. But at the very least, like, he's doing something we've actually seen him do before. Like, my problem, like, I'm fine with killers that do stuff that we haven't seen them before, as long as it feels like it fits. Springtrap's axe, it doesn't feel like it fits with Springtrap, if that makes sense. It, to me, at the very least, it really only feels like they did it because they didn't want to do what the people wanted, but they still wanted to do something that would, like, minimize the amount of hate Springtrap would get on release as much as possible. So they were like, oh, we can make him throw an axe. And because Scott knows that the people love the axe, he approved of it without really, I don't know, I guess just, like, thinking about it, I guess. I don't know. But to me, and to a lot of other people, it's just weird that Springtrap, like, I get that Springtrap isn't really who he was in FNAF 3, and I talked about that a little bit. He's like a big personality guy, but he always had that, like, even, like, in the FNAF movie or in the fucking Twisted ones, he sends the animatronics to go get the chick, and in the movie, he sends Mike to go work at the pizzeria, and he waits for the animatronics to kill them, and then after a little while, the animatronics aren't doing that, and in the Twisted ones, they go down and find him, and then that's when he does the big personality thing. I always felt like that's a cool part of his character, that he would plan, and he'd try to, like, put people into, like, traps and stuff, but if the traps didn't work, or, like, he was found out, he would take things into his own hands, and he'd switch over to having, like, this huge personality, and he gloated a lot, and I really liked that about his character, that he was smart and he just loved to just like talk so much. And in Dead by Daylight, that it doesn't really capture that side of his character. It only really captures the big annoying personality, and I feel like he even like amplifies it by having him say like in one-liners and shit like that. And it feels weird to me again that for some reason, like, it feels, I don't know, it feels like Scott has just like fully abandoned that part of Springtrap's character and William Afton's character, I guess, and made him the fully huge personality dude. And I find like the big personality horror movie villains, I've never found them really that scary, or like horror game villains, I've never really found them that scary unless they earn their personality, if that makes sense. Like, take like Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7. I find him to be incredibly scary because he's this big hulking dude, and then he's like walking through walls and shit, and then he's also just like laughing at you and making fun of you and shit like that. And I think that's scary, and he does it it's like way over the top, but he earns that big personality by also having like a big hulking frame, and like, again, he's like just this super scary dude. And Springtrap, on the other hand, and especially in like Dead by Daylight, like obviously in Dead by Daylight he still has like the big personality, but unlike in like the Twisted ones or in the FNAF movie, where he like plans stuff out and then he has to take things into his own hands, and then he comes out and he earns the big personality and he earns the gloating by also being like an imposing figure and like a cool figure. In Dead by Daylight, he is the big annoying personality. And I don't like characters that don't earn it. Like, I feel like the best way I can describe it, it's like what happened to Freddy Krueger in the original Nightmare on Elm Street movies, where he's this super scary dude, but he's also like making jokes and shit. He's also like cutting off his own fingers, and like his face gets torn off and he's a stupid laughing skeleton. But it's like spread out by him also being this like like he's doing it to like fuck with the people and stuff like that. Whereas like in like part 5 and part 6 of Nightmare on Elm Street, and it feels like his character's devolved into just making the jokes, and instead of making the jokes to like try to be scary, it feels like he's only making the jokes and being a huge personality just to make the audience laugh. And I feel like that's when a character stops earning that big personality, is when it feels like they're only doing it to make the audience laugh, and they're only doing it to try to be funny for the movie, instead of like, you know, being scary for the, I don't know, I guess making jokes and like doing it to like torture their victims, I guess. And Springtrap's always been like a little corny about it. William Afton's always been a little corny about it, and that's fine as long as he's still being scary. But in Dead by Daylight, all he is a super big personality amplified, and he's just so annoying, and it feels like he's like saying all these like references. He's like the darkest pit of hell is opened for business. I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with him saying who wants the special and shit. But because it doesn't feel, I would be fine with him saying that, but it doesn't feel like he earns the right to gloat. He isn't scary enough to earn the right to gloat, I guess, if that makes sense. just again, like the axe, it's just such a weird power to choose, and it feels like it was only approved because it's, oh look, it's a funny reference to the series. And I feel like Scott should have done something else. I feel like if behavior weren't so like hard on not doing a stealth killer for some reason, they would have maybe done, like, I feel like Scott, because he doesn't know how to do a Dead by Daylight chapter, he was gonna be fine with anything. And it feels like behavior, it feels like the power was only designed by behavior, and then Scott just had to be okay with it, because again, like, he didn't know what was going on, he didn't know how to do it, so he just put his trust into behavior. And then behavior, instead of making something the people wanted and something that would be unique and take effort, they took the lame route of doing like a number tweaked version. And then Scott was like, oh, it's okay because the axe will be canon, I guess. And like, I don't want to believe that Scott approved of Springtrap's power, just because I just don't like it, I guess. I don't want to believe that Scott approved of something so boring and generic, all because there's a reference in it and because the axe will be canon now. Like, the best way to make the axe canon that all like the concepts had was always to make his M1 the axe and then have his left hand free to do whatever the else he wanted to do with it. And that's where I feel like Scott also failed in implementing the axe as the reference, and I guess behavior too, because making the reference the only thing Springtrap can do, it makes the reference less fun to me, where now every time I see the axe, instead of going, oh, that's a cool reference to Die in a Fire, I'll see somebody like animating the axe and I'll go, oh man, that's the thing that ruined Springtrap's power, you know what I mean? I feel the axe should have just always been his M1, and I feel like making his axe the only thing he can do is throwing the axe like actively and then being able to like teleport. It feels so disconnected from like everything else we've seen before, and it just feels weird to me. Like, it feels like they didn't, like, I don't remember if I said this in the video or not, but it feels like they didn't know how to make Springtrap's power, but they didn't want to do what the people wanted, but they still wanted to like try to temper everybody who didn't want him to have an axe. All the people are like, it's be so unfortunate. So instead of doing something like stealth based or something, they're like, okay, they like cobbled together all these like references to FNAF. They're like, guys, look, it's the security doors, and oh look, cameras, and it's like, why? It's like, what? You know what I mean? It's like, Springtrap never interacts with the doors, so it's like, why do the doors? And then it's like I get that they needed something for a traversal, but even then it just feels like such like a cobbled together thing where they're like, oh, Springtrap, he throws an axe and then he can jump scare, and then, oh, what other FNAF stuff is there? Oh, the security doors and cameras, and it feels like such a cobbled together and like power, if that makes sense, where it feels like they were forcing themselves to not do the thing the people wanted, and they were also like, they just didn't know what to do. And like, I don't know, I just don't really like the power, I guess. I just don't think the power is that unique or interesting, and every time I played with Springtrap's power, nothing really ever felt like I was playing Springtrap except for the Office jump scare. I feel like making a power that had like a bigger focus on stealth and jump scares, and then doing something with the phantoms would have been a better idea. Like, obviously that's describing my power, and obviously my power rework, whatever, obviously I think that the rework is better than the current power, and I feel like I just feel like it's a much more unique power, I feel like, and I wish there's just a much bigger focus on Springtrap's, like, I don't know, I guess just stealth, I guess, I don't know. And I just wish that his power was more unique and better, I guess. And then, like, I feel like behavior as well with, like, Michael, it feels like they're on, like, super thin ice with Michael, where they're like, we don't want to do Michael Afton because the people, it's like, okay, and now if they ever were to add in like a Michael Afton legendary skin, that completely destroys any argument they made about not having a survivor, and it makes it super clear that that was just another corner they cut for the sake of, like, I don't know, like, just time management or something. And like again, it feels like they were just so adamant on not making something that the people wanted. And even with like the map too, the people wanted Fazbear Frights or one of the original locations, and instead they were like, oh, you know, let's do an original location that looks nothing like any location we've seen before. And again, it's like how I described it in the video. Oh, it's like instead of getting RPD, we were to get just some like generic ass police station that has like the statue from RPD in it, and then it's like, oh look, it has like the movie like office or something, and then that's the one room. And it feels so, like, it just feels so bad to play on, because it just feels so weird that for some reason it says Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but it doesn't look like anything that we've seen before. And I'll be like, oh look, it's the movie entrance, and I'll go in and then it'll be nothing. And they said that the map would have like a bunch of Easter eggs on it and stuff like that, and there's just no Easter eggs on it at all. It has like 2 more Easter eggs than average, and I feel like a lot of people were expecting the map to, like, I don't know, have like environmental Easter eggs. Like, imagine like there's like TVs that are staticking, and then sometimes they'll like show the FNAF 1 hallucinations, and then there's like an office and it's like the FNAF 1 office or something like that. And instead we got the super generic haunted area Easter eggs where, oh look, it's a poltergeist, the stuff's moving, look at the eyes and the ovens, and then you have like two terrible jump scares, and then the phone, which could have been a cool Easter egg if the phone ever picked up, but the phone doesn't pick up, does it? The phone, it goes off and then it doesn't do anything else. Like, imagine it was like the FNAF phone call where like they got Scott in and he was like, oh, what is this place? What's going on? You know what I mean? Like, something like that would have been really cool, right? It would be like really cool and really interesting. It would be a cool Easter egg, but because it's just the phone ringing, it feels like they're like, oh guys, look, the phone rings, right guys? And then they didn't put any more effort into the Easter egg outside of that, and what could have been like a really cool Easter egg feels like they're just like, oh man, that's pretty cool, right guys? Like, again, it just feels like the power was made without the character in mind, and then they're like, oh, we'll put in these references and these Easter eggs in the power, and then, oh, look, the purple guy drawing, look, it's a reference to FNAF World, and it's like, I guess, like, and I don't feel like this video, like, even if it, like, blows up or something like that, this video isn't gonna, like, change anything, and I'm not trying to make a video that, like, changes his power or whatever. Like, obviously, I wanted a different power, and I want his power to be different, and I'd love it if they changed it, but I don't think that's gonna happen, because too many people like it. It's the same thing with Nemesis, and why Nemesis's power's never been changed. People who are fans of Resident Evil were like, oh man, his power blows, where's the rocket launcher, or like the big hulking mass? Why is this tyrant, this big beastly thing, taking 3 hits to down somebody? And then, you know what I mean? And the people there felt like it was super disconnected from his character. Or even if he was doing shit he's done before, the people there still felt like his power felt disconnected from his character and like what he's done, and didn't really capture the full potential of the character. But because too many people liked the power, it never got changed. And it's obviously, it's like, why would they change the power if so many people like it, just so it can fit with the character more? And like, I feel like what's going to happen with the FNAF chapter is, like, the majority of people will still like it, but I feel like over time, less and less people will like this chapter and like Springtrap's power, especially after like more licensed chapters release, and they'll get better powers and more unique powers that feel like they fit with the character more and stuff like that. And people, and the FNAF fans specifically, will see all these super unique powers and stuff, and they'll look at Springtrap and he just throws an axe and that's it. And like, that's what I'm predicting at the very least, is that the people will see the future content and it'll be like way more effort and way more like character and personality put into it than with FNAF, and people will be like, huh, so that fucking blows, and then they'll be mad. But the majority of people will still think that Springtrap's power is fine, because it doesn't matter to them if it doesn't fit with his character, or fit, like, because like he just, it doesn't matter, because the power feels great, and that's all that matters to them, and that's all that matters to behavior as well. Like, we would need like Freddy version 1 and version 2 like amount of hate, and Skull Merchant amount of hate, for them to do any significant changes. But all that matters to behavior and to the majority of people who aren't fans of Dead by Day, of FNAF, who aren't like big fans of FNAF, and who just play Dead by Daylight. It doesn't matter if the power doesn't fit with the character. All that matters is the power feels good to play, and the people who don't like his power because it doesn't fit with his character will just get shut down, pretty much. And I'm even predicting that like people in the comments and people who make like reaction response videos to this, for whatever reason, they're gonna go like, oh, well, it doesn't matter because the power feels good, and it sucks. But that's really all I had to say. The only thing I can really see them changing is the music, and like the music's just like, it's like the smallest part of the chapter, and the music's still bad, and I want them to change it, yes, but there's a bigger issue with his power just kind of being, nah, you know what I mean? And even with like his incredible add-on variation, I played with him like a decent amount, and I still, like, I never really felt like I was playing him differently with all these different add-ons. I still just felt like I was playing the same character. It's just that now, instead of being able to go fast, I can, like, go faster or something, and it just sucks. And obviously, I'm predicting as well, there's gonna be at least like one person in the comments gonna be like, Dead by Daylight fans trying not to complain. If I was a Dead by Daylight fan alone and not a FNAF fan, I'd probably be fine with it. But because I've been a fan of Dead by Daylight, like, less than a lot of other people, but like I've still been a fan of Dead by Daylight, and I've seen all the other licensed chapters and how much more like love and effort that was put into them. It feels weird to me, I guess. I don't know. But that's really all I had to say, I guess. Like, I don't really know what else to say. Like, I'm sure I'll think of other things to say, and I mean, if I do, I'll probably like say them in like a community post or something. So if you want to see like anything extra that I have to say, check my community post, I guess. But yeah, that's really all I had to say. That's really all I had to like extend on, I guess. And yeah, I guess I'll cut back to the video. But yeah, that's all I had to say. I hope you guys enjoy. I'll end the recording after this cutscene for the people who are watching me play the game instead of listening to me talk for some reason. I also might do like a full New Game Plus playthrough of this game, just because I've enjoyed this game a lot. It's a really cool game. But I liked making this video, and I think I really like this style of content where I just get to like sit down and talk about stuff. It feels nice to be able to talk about how I feel to people, and I get that I only have like 500 subs or whatever, but I still think my opinion should matter. I still think you guys care at least a little bit about my opinion and how I feel, and I'm really appreciative of you guys. I said I'd do a 100 subscriber special, and then I never did. I just couldn't think of anything to do. I wanted to do something big, but I just couldn't think of anything big, I guess. I just couldn't think of anything that felt worthy of you guys, I guess. So I really appreciate all the support, and I really look forward to making more videos in the future. I stopped animating for a tiny bit. You can see that I stopped animating for a tiny bit. I just needed to take a break from FNAF, because Secret Mimic was good, but it doesn't really have the same vibe that old FNAF had and hasn't had for a little while. And like, that's not a bad thing. I think a change in vibe can be fine, but I don't know, it's just something with FNAF doesn't really feel right to me. And especially after the FNAF Chapter 2, which was, well, you know, like I said throughout the entirety of this video, was a super boring, uninspired feeling, just like, not mess, but just like uninspired, uninteresting thing. I don't know, I just feel like FNAF is changing, and not in a way that I like, I guess. But I will continue making videos after this. It's just a little break I needed from making FNAF stuff. And again, I hope you guys really enjoy this video. I'm gonna put a big plan right in the middle. I said I was gonna end recording. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys like this video, and I put a lot of effort into this video. Well, you know, clearly, because I have fucking 4 versions of this that I made, and this is the 4th version, and you know, I hope it's the best version. But I just one more time, I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate all your support, and I look forward to making FNAF content and FNAF animations for just ever, I guess. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later. That sounded like a Vanos Gaming outro. I love you guys.